Welcome in to another episode of Betting the Pitch NFL edition. This might be the last episode of the season, or it might not be. If we get five-star reviews, we'll do a props episode, or maybe 5 Patreon subscribers, patreon.com/real_G Warner. We just need some sort of motivation because unfortunately it is the last week of the season. We're, as far as I know, Andrew, you're not going to Vegas. All of a sudden, you're gonna stay at home and
No.
watch it with the kid and wife. Is that right?
Yeah, we might have a little gathering here at the house, in the suburbs.
Thank you for my invite. So
I'm
I'm the
sorry. Would you
G
like to come
Warner.
down? I don't
Thank
think you
you.
want to come. This house is a war zone right now. I don't know if you want to get
Uh,
involved.
yeah. So I'm the real_G Warner on Instagram, Patreon, and Twitter. You are listening also to Andrew Snicker, A_SCHNITKER. He is in Austin with strep throat, fighting through a
Yeah.
an episode tonight. But we're going through the Super Bowl. We're going to talk about our bets on this game. We'll have a best bet. We might do a double best bet because there's not a lot of opportunities here. And we're going to try to keep the momentum going. Actually, it's been so long since we did a podcast. We took last week off because there was no game, at least nothing relevant in the NFL, including whatever was broadcast on ESPN. But we had a really good playoffs. It was a little bit of a seesaw lately, but I know one part of this podcast has been real hot and is very, very sad that the season is about to be officially over. Thank you. If anyone's listening and not watching on Spotify or on Apple Podcasts or on YouTube, you can watch us there if you really want to see our beautiful faces. Then Andrew is pointing at me. So I'm gonna try to keep that going. But unfortunately, I got a really slow start to the season, got hot towards the end, and we're gonna try to finish it off on the right foot. So, Andrew Snicker, did you watch anything of the Pro Bowl and did you have a fun experience? Because I didn't watch a second.
I actually did enjoy it. I didn't
Oh,
think I didn't think I was going to enjoy it, but I watched. I mean, I tuned out. I didn't know the format really. So I was watching some of the flag football and then I got sidetracked and then they did some of the skills things. I was like, "Oh, okay, this is kind of cool." It wasn't terrible. Like given what we're doing now, like it wasn't a terrible experience. So I would probably watch it again.
there we go. Wasn't a terrible experience. A ringing endorsement from A_SCHNITKER.
Plus, like golf, there was no golf that day, so like there was not much to watch.
Oh yeah,
Since
not much to watch. Just
Pebble
an
Beach was
entire
canceled.
slate of soccer or college basketball. But hey, fine. People like what they like. I'm not here to judge or make statements about anything. But if we got a 5-star review, I mean, that would have been something nice if some of our listeners would have come through with some like. I mean, I know there were some people missing out on our college basketball podcast we do on this network called Betting the Pitch, the Need for Seeds college basketball podcast. But unfortunately, my co-host was in Mexico on his honeymoon, so he couldn't make it for like the biggest college basketball weekend of the entire
Yeah, it's a
season.
huge weekend.
Like, I don't know that we've had 4 top 10 or 3 top 10 matchups on the same weekend, same day, in the same slots on the same network in I don't know, since I've been podcasting. So that's at least 3 or 4 years. But at least we're here and ready to go through the Super Bowl. And as I said earlier, if you give us 5-star reviews, or if I get 5, a combination aggregate of Patreon subscribers, patreon.com/real_G Warner, we will do a props episode just to make sure that everyone is sweating the entire Super Bowl on Sunday. So what we've been doing lately is throwing out our numbers, at least for the playoffs. It's less embarrassing, especially for a 1-game slate, or it could be embarrassing. Andrew Snicker, what did you have for the San Francisco Giants and the Kansas City Chiefs in Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas, Nevada? A
Did,
black Roomba, you could call that stadium.
did you intentionally say the San Francisco Giants, or was that a
No, San Francisco
nice?
49ers. I guess I'm getting ready for
Good.
baseball, baby.
I didn't have the line for Giants or San Francisco Giants
Oh,
Chiefs, but
that'd be, I mean, I don't know what that spread would be. It'd probably be large.
it'd be huge. I had the 49ers -3.
Whoa. I had the Niners -1 with a total of 47 flat, which actually makes me feel pretty good because some of my totals have been way off. We got 47.5 here. Opened at -2. This website is saying, whatever I'm using. I definitely saw 1.5. I'm not sure I ever saw -1, but it seems like I guess they're in between yours and my numbers at this point.
Yeah.
What do we think about the movement so far? -1 or -1.5 to 2. a huge gargantuan number, key number, especially for the 2 point conversion at the end of the game, potentially. But besides that, maybe a game winning safety. Do you put a lot do you put a lot of stake in the gigantic move from 1.5 to 2?
No. And I think when we were talking about it, two teams that are pretty evenly gonna be pretty evenly marked. The books are just going to have a great time throwing that right in between a middle of a key number and let them kind of bounce back and forth. It probably would make more sense if you like the 49ers, just take them on the money line at this, well, not right now, but earlier in the 2 weeks. And maybe you can find a rogue 2.5 on the Chiefs somewhere and pay a hefty price for a 3. Even when I made this number, I knew we were not gonna see a 3 because no one's gonna be that bold. That you're not gonna put yourself out on an island like that to just get crushed on one side. But I've been higher on the 49ers all year.
What do you think the bet splits would have been on a San Francisco
Oh my
three
God.
point favorite against Patrick Mahomes and the Taylor Swift? Like the Swifties might be literally making accounts in the states that allow gambling, or hopefully following the podcast description that I have below this.
Yeah.
You can see links to get 50% bonus at Bet Online or 100% at their sister site, SportsBetting.ag. Follow those links, get those extra monies. And Swifties, I don't know if I am part of you. Probably not. I support you and whatever you're doing. And if you, I mean, it'd be amazing if what the Eras Tour did for the GDP of the United States of America, if they all of a sudden threw that all on Kansas City, the chefs, and we could see where this number would move. That would be, to me, a very efficient market. Maybe some bias reflected in Taylor's boyfriend playing for one of the teams and not for the other.
Sure.
But what? So I guess that was the question. So a 3 point favorite here if San Francisco was up to your number,
I
which
mean,
would be a
we're
lot
talking
of credit.
probably like 80-20, right? That would be my guess.
I mean, because I feel like anyone who just wants to bet the last NFL game of the year is taking the 3.
And would be the total cliche, which is what we're already hearing of like, oh, Patrick Mahomes is getting points for the third straight week, fourth straight week. Like, how many times have we already heard that?
The
So like
Bills, the
Bills, Ravens,
Ravens.
they were favorites against the Dolphins, obviously. Yeah,
Yes,
they're at home.
yes, they were.
Um, so now 3 straight weeks, it's becoming the line right up there with any T Swift conversation, coming the line of, oh, you're gonna take Patrick Mahomes as an underdog every time.
So why'd you make the Niners a 3 point favorite? I mean,
I've been higher on the Niners all year, and I've probably been lower on the Chiefs. And I have not changed. Nothing in the postseason has really changed my number. So yeah, maybe it's a little bit off, but um, I'm basically riding from the end of the regular season.
so my best bet last week was the Chiefs
It was a great
plus
bet.
3.5, I want to say, whatever the number
You
was.
took it early, but then
Yeah,
we
whatever.
talked. I mean, you also got a great. You got
It
it.
didn't matter because they
It didn't
won
matter.
straight up, baby.
Yep.
That's what we're
Yep.
trying
Yep.
which is what they say in the NFL is you instead of just taking the point, you take the money line. So that'd be the argument here to take the chefs.
Yep.
I guess before we move on to, I guess, the both sides of the ball, in terms of line movement, feels very unlikely we see a 3 here. Anything that you expect with a total, you could say a fast track indoors. You
Yep.
don't have to worry about Brock Purdy playing with a glove, not with a glove, Michael Jackson glove, whatever.
Yeah. I think when I'm looking at this, I think the total's a touch high,
Okay.
which I mean, if your number is 47, I mean, we're right there. But like how often does an indoor Super Bowl event like this, how often does the total go down on like game day?
I
mean,
mean, I feel like and my number was just me putting together team totals, essentially pushing them together and seeing what
yeah,
happens.
yeah,
I would imagine that there's probably something significant in this one, which is like, we're not going to just get a casual bettor coming in and saying, oh, let's root for punts today. So I
right.
wonder how much is baked in there. I would expect, if anything, the number to climb higher. But there are probably some very wealthy groups that will be continuing to bash that number down. Maybe every time it hits 48, because that's
Yeah,
sometimes
48.
a key number.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's all 48 would be a big one. Yeah, I have the interest in the under in general.
Yeah, I feel like that's generally the way to go in these type of big events. I mean, it's hard to say that with a Patrick Mahomes team, but
Yeah.
as we've seen from Kansas City, I guess we could get into this if we've talked to the line parts. We might as well go into, I guess, the matchups here because that's generally what I call myself, a matchup handicapper. I'm not sure it's as impactful in the NFL because I feel like there's a lot baked into everything. But Kansas City, I mean, I think everyone coming into the playoffs, and there's a reason why they've been underdogs 3 straight weeks, and that's because there was very little respect for what Kansas City had done really all of the season, maybe especially at the end. That gross loss on Christmas Day or Christmas Eve or whatever day after Christmas, Boxing Day maybe, to the Raiders, I think really caused some problems and kind of the future of the Kansas City Chiefs. And then seeing Travis Kelce really not do much. What do we think about the Kansas City offense? I mean, Patrick Mahomes seems like he's beyond reproach. He's just like he's got like the papal infallibility when they talk. Like even if they say something wrong, it's supposedly correct. I feel like we can't like go against Patrick Mahomes, and he feels like one of those guys that maybe I just should not ever bet against because it seems like he covers the spread even when it's not deserved. At least I guess that didn't really happen a couple seasons ago when they were really struggling as big favorites all the time. But here we're an underdog. So what do we think about Kansas City's offense against San Francisco?
To me, it feels like the Chiefs have simplified quite a bit, and that's even in terms of um, letting Mahomes kind of direct the show. And they've been, I, some of this is kind of, you're like, yeah, no crap. But like they've been able to isolate the guys that have become consistent playmakers and was saying, okay, we're going to try to get them the ball as much as possible. You know, Kelsey had what, 11 receptions against Baltimore. Uh, it's just like you're going to Rashee Rice, you're going to Kelsey, and you're going to Pacheco as much as possible.
To me though, it seemed like Travis Kelce was a zero for most of the season. I mean, I don't know necessarily that
Yeah,
he
like
just reached a barrier with his knee, where it's certainly in a as healthy of a place as it could have been, or something like that. But he was really great to me early against Baltimore, and then Baltimore couldn't score when he kind of got shut down in the second half, and it kind of felt like that was what happened in the previous game against Buffalo as well.
yeah. And I mean, I've actually started listening to portions of their podcast, the Jason Travis Kelsey
Oh,
podcast.
oh yeah.
I mean, they're not
What
going
do
to give
they
away
talk about?
they're not
It,
giving away much there, but they usually talk some of the football stuff. And you know, it's very simple. He's saying we're not doing the dumb things that were causing us to lose games. We're not dropping balls. We're not causing turnovers. Like we're and you're like, yes, of course. But like
unless
those were
Mecole
big issues.
Hardman's involved. Okay, sure.
So like I think they've said, okay, we know these guys are reliable. We know that we can trust these guys. So this is what we're going with, and let's let Mahomes make the decisions and go simple. Are you okay? Everything good?
Yeah, I just smacked my microphone. I'm not used
Okay.
to having a thing in front of my face
Hard.
all the time, but I guess I
Um,
do podcasts every day, so I probably should be used to it by now.
let's look at just in general the Chiefs' offense against San Francisco. I think um, in the playoffs, we've watched San Francisco's run defense give up some pretty big chunks. Maybe not like they've still been pretty good efficiency wise, but they've given up some gashers. Um, they and I'm taking this from who was talking. I'm taking this is not. It was talking about the difference in San Francisco's defense when they're like an outside zone run, when they're facing an outside zone run concept versus inside zone, which you know they were not able to defend outside zone very well, and it just so happened Green Bay did that a lot. Detroit actually hadn't, but was able to do that a little bit more with Jahmyr Gibbs. Um, so I would be interested to see like what the Chiefs are going to do to get Pacheco going.
Well, to me, they are an inside the tackles type of run team. They're smash mouth up the
Yes, that's
middle,
what they've
use
been. Yeah,
Pacheco and run all over
and
everybody. I mean,
that's not going to work.
that would be a wrinkle to throw in there potentially because we've seen in the Super Bowls with 2 weeks to prepare, some of these coaches get real dumb in the playoffs, unfortunately, and they start reinventing things that they got the playoffs playing one way and then tried things a different way. I mean, maybe that worked pretty well for the Lions and until I guess the second half or until they started to struggle late. I'm still amazed the 49ers are here, and part of me feels like their luck will run out eventually. But San Francisco to me is built to have a lead and to basically have their pass rushers pin their ears back and run. We've heard about gap discipline issues back in Washington for Chase Young. I
Mhm.
don't know necessarily. I haven't read anything that said he's improved that significantly. Maybe he's got a little bit more of a buy-in because the team's actually good and he's trying to win, and has a hope to win a Super Bowl. And clearly they've made it here. But I feel like that kind of style change feels a little bit weird for me. I don't know if Andy Reid is the type to just kind of do. I mean, as you mentioned on the other podcast, which we won't name because we're only advertising our own here, Betting the Pitch podcast, NFL edition. It sounded like keeping it simple was the Kansas City mantra for the playoffs so far. It's worked really well. So it almost feels like if they start going outside the tackles and kind of redesigning their rush offense, that to me feels like that would be a little bit different than keeping it simple because they haven't done that all season, or at least it hasn't gotten them here to the Super Bowl. So to me, do you change your matchups? Like, are you playing, not to use a college basketball example, but that's the easiest one for me is like, if there's a big guy that you can't defend, you just give up and use all small guys because then potentially you get enough on the other end. So
Yeah.
does Kansas City in this situation decide that they're just going to do what they've done and what's gotten them here? And they've won multiple Super Bowls and had a really great run of incredible playoff success? Or do they start changing things up? Which would you feel? I mean, would you feel comfortable backing Kansas City if they're running a different offense in the Super Bowl? Because we've seen like big changes from Bill Belichick before that's worked. I
Yeah.
think specifically in Sean McVay, which made him look really, really lost. And Jared Goff specifically. But that's more of a defensive thing rather than an offensive thing. And usually the offense, they're deciding the line of scrimmage, they're deciding the trenches, they're deciding everything. And that's what makes defense so hard, especially with the rules the way they are. But ultimately, you have the responsibility to take initiative. And I think the defense might be surprised by things, but that also might be because they're doing things that they haven't been good at. And that might result in a lower DVOA and things of that nature.
I think this year, out of any year with the Kansas City Chiefs, would be the year to try to change some things up because their offense hasn't been. They've been an under team for you go back through all their results over the last 10 weeks. I mean, they hit the over against Buffalo, but most of those games, I mean, and then maybe there was one regular season game, maybe the Patriots weather game. I'm sorry if I'm bringing up bad memories for you.
Oh, that was a fun under. Thank you, Bailey Zappi. I hope you
Um,
didn't, I don't know, say anything bad.
but
Never mind. Sorry, excuse my French.
but most of they've been an under team, and I think like if we're talking about some of the previous iterations of the Chiefs offense where you're like, hey, we've got our horses, these are our guys, this is what we do. I don't think you're doing that. But in this situation, you put up 17 against Baltimore. You didn't do anything in the second half. It's been several, I mean, second half unders with the Chiefs involved is like been a winner for like 10 straight weeks. So
That
it's
I'm sad that I've missed out on that. I'd probably be driving a Bentley now.
you could join the party on Sunday.
I just feel really bad about jumping on the party. Like, last
Being
person
the one to
walking into the
ruin it.
house party, right as the cops roll up. Okay, so
I've
go ahead.
I've
Finish.
I've done it the last 2 weeks, and this was not again. This was someone else who was like bringing this up, and then I started looking at the results. I was like, "Holy moly!" It's almost like a blanket, just automatic second half under with the Chiefs.
Yeah.
Which means, of course, it's not going to work in the Super Bowl. Like
Well, what I think it means if San Francisco is trailing, then that thing is in danger. But Kansas City with a lead, it seems like they're not making mistakes. Speaking of the San Francisco side, we'll start with offenses first, I guess. Do we think that San Francisco, I mean, Kansas City, their defense has been good, but I feel like it's because they've been playing low scoring games, and I'm not sure it's been that good. I'm still very concerned about Brock Purdy as quarterback. I mean, yes, the conditions should be perfect, optimal for him to potentially play the best game he can. But to me, he is successful because the running game is successful. Do we think that San Francisco can get a good enough push or design a good enough strategy to get him some open pockets and throwing windows?
I man, I'm not going to doubt Steve Spagnuolo at this point. Like his game plan for the Ravens. Yes, we can go back and look at how many times the Ravens did it to themselves. Um, but like that defense was great.
I
And
mean, the Ravens ran on everybody all season. So
yes, and then they didn't run, and then they chose not to run, even though probably they could have run. Anyways, but I think that again that goes back to the Chiefs defense. If whenever I was talking about not moving my numbers or anything, looking at what they've accomplished, and yes, Charles Minihue having a torn Achilles or a torn ACL, and not obviously not playing in this game is
He's the
does make
only
a
guy
difference.
out, it looks like, which is really sad
Um,
for our Longhorn.
did you know that Longhorns never scored a touchdown in the Super Bowl? Anyways,
That's because they didn't put Vince Young in.
that's and admitting he wasn't going to score a touchdown, but
I mean, that would have been the guy to do it if there's
there you
everyone.
go. That would have
Mm.
been perfect. Um, so I like the 49ers offense. I love how many weapons they have. I love this amount of time to be able to get Debo Samuel even healthier. Um, so I do think that they should have enough success. But yes, Brock Purdy, I don't want to go down just a full long conversation about him, but he will, to me, he's going to be good enough to win this game as long as he gets the ball to McCaffrey and Debo.
Yeah, I think he's going to have real trouble coming from behind, but we'll see if that's the case. I think to your Spagnuolo point,
He's done it 2 straight weeks now.
oh yeah, against the most talented of talented teams.
Well, the NFC, it's
A
just not.
7 seed and a 3 seed, which came from the same division, which you could argue, did Detroit only a 4 point favorite to the playoff non-qualifying Minnesota Vikings at home, like
The
with
NFC
playing their
is
starters,
not very good, except for San Francisco.
Yeah, see that that does interest me a little bit because especially considering if you do the little transitive properties, which do not recommend, but seeing
Yeah, I don't think you should do that.
what the Ravens did in San Francisco to the Niners on that Monday Night Football game way back when,
Yeah,
and then seeing what the Chiefs did, and then the Chiefs are an underdog, so that's interesting.
but
I just
the
think
skill
from
sets of the defense that you can't, I know you're not saying.
Sure. Yeah, I'm not advocating that, but it does, I mean, it seems a little bit interesting to see one of those teams favored, but we both expected the Niners to be favored. So I think just your Spagnuolo comment, I mean, to me, he was a blitzer guy, but it seemed like he had the ability to deploy the defense in different ways against Baltimore and at least kept Baltimore guessing enough. Different team, of course, different quarterback, way less mobile. Brock Purdy is than Lamar Jackson, but I feel like I've come to a point with Shanahan where I trust his rushing schemes, and I trust that they're going to work. I don't know if they're going to like win games work for you, but I think that in general they're usually going to get positive yardage more so than I guess above the average rushing attack. So if that's the case, I don't see Debo Samuel on injury report right now, so it feels like there's a lot of good things going forward. That 2 weeks is probably really, really helpful for the 49ers. And I'm not sure necessarily that was so helpful for the Chiefs in the same sort of way. But San Francisco is going to be very healthy. Now, do we think defensively, is there anything we want to comment on either of these teams before we get a little bit deeper into, I guess, other ideas?
I I think I think the 49ers defense match has a better matchup with the Chiefs. And you brought up, Chase Young and the rush lanes and that defensive line. Like, you're saying, are they actually going to do that? Well, if they don't listen and do it for the Super Bowl, if he doesn't, then
He's
what are we
never going to
talking? Like,
correct.
what are we talking? Like, I can understand why someone would look at him and say, oh, he doesn't have discipline in that way. Well, in the Super Bowl, you're probably going to when you're playing Patrick Mahomes and know what's going to happen if you don't.
Um,
Um,
to that quarterback thing, because I think there is some reasonable discussion there. I don't think it's close in Patrick Mahomes and his ability versus Brock Purdy, but maybe there's such a significant difference in the supporting cast. And that's generally how you talk about building teams to get to the Super Bowl is you want to have a quarterback on a rookie deal, and then basically you're able to build around him with a bunch of talented players. On the other side, you have Mahomes, who signed a super max contract, whatever they call that in this league, and they've filled in around him, traded Cheetah, which is a big deal. And I don't know necessarily that trying to and re-signing a tight end to a long-term deal instead of Cheetah was the way to go. But back in the day, it seemed like Mahomes to Kelsey was unstoppable. So maybe that's speaking. And we've seen kind of the drop off to Marquez Valdes-Scantling, who's been playing really well in the playoffs compared to what he did all regular season.
yeah,
Um, we would expect based on coin tosses and things of that nature, most everyone seems to defer, it seems.
yeah.
I don't know necessarily if there's any sort of advantages in those situations, but to me it feels like the Chiefs are going to be in much bigger trouble coming from behind than San Francisco would be. San Francisco has proven they can do it because they've had to do it. The Chiefs on the other side have been leading this entire playoffs. do you take anything from those results and those type of game scenarios that says anything about kind of how you'd predict this matchup to go?
Hmm. No, I mean, I would just look at the Chiefs, and it is very narrative based, but we're watching this like next dynasty, and it's following the same like perfect bullet point steps as like the Patriots, right? Like, you've had some of these years where they're just absolutely dominant, and but though even in the years that they're down, like that they're still able to be the best of a really talented AFC. Um, I think should be something that makes people take note on if you're trying to make a bet on the side. And we're talking about one game here. I know everyone wants to have action on something, but I don't know if the total, or I don't know if something game wise or total wise is the way you want to go. Um,
So that's a perfect lead in or segue
my
to
God,
getting
yeah,
5-star reviews. We need 5 of them, and we'll record a props episode, and we'll go
yeah,
all in as deep as you want. I mean, if you want to comment in the 5-star review, tell us how great we are, how smart we are, how beautiful we are, whatever you want to say. But if you want some specific questions answered or props to potentially look at, because there's a million different ones on a million different sites, like if you're really into the Gatorade being colored red or something like that, because most of these teams are red, maybe that's a thing.
yeah. I mean, we
Let
can.
us know, and we'll get our Pepsi bottlers on the ground to figure out. I think they're owned by Gator. I think Gatorade is owned by them, but figuring out who exactly is involved, and we'll try to we're gonna put some well placed moles in the locker rooms, or do as much as we can, not just Twitter research. I did a lot of work on the national anthem way back when in college, and Jordan Sparks paused for the flyover, and that sent the national anthem, which was definitely going under. I sent it over, and that was really tough for me for a drinking Sunday with no money in my Bovada account at that point. So that was not super fun. Also, not a big fan of Bovada because they cut my limits to $30 a game. So F you to Bovada. But sorry, I'm not going to mention that name who should not be mentioned again. But I guess one thing before we get into the ultimate best bets portion of our show, or just best bet portion, I guess. In terms of the injury report, you already mentioned Amenahu, who's out with various injuries. Doesn't look like anyone's going to miss. I mean, there's some rumors about George Kittle potentially has not practiced, though. You could say the similar things about Trent Williams, though he did do a full practice on what looks like Friday of last week, at least what I'm looking at. Um, any injury concerns? I mean, because Debo's not on this list, at least the one I'm looking at currently. It looks like Joe Tooney's the Tooney, I
Yeah,
think. It looks like he's the biggest question mark of important players with pectoral injury.
yeah. And I thought that whoever filled in, it was so funny. It's a I he's a guard, and you can replace those usually easier. I thought his fill
Lowest
in,
paid position of starting like
yeah, like his
11s.
fill
Yeah.
in did fine, and especially against actually fine is probably an understatement against the Ravens defense. But yeah, Tooney would be something to watch, I guess. And if Kittle is legitimately injured, or if they're just giving him a lot of rest,
I
because
mean,
he
no,
plays
no
so good.
practices yet. They had Trent Williams on there for rest, who didn't practice on Thursday of last week, it looked like. I mean, it's recording this Tuesday night, a lot can change. I imagine everyone, if their leg is not severed, they will be doing everything they can to get in this game, because flags fly forever, and saying you're on the field of a Super Bowl is probably what these guys have been literally spending their whole lives working for.
Yeah.
So,
Trent
uh,
Williams got one of those injuries probably that'll come out after the season, where they've just been trying to
manage it, and
mitigate
they'll
and,
have
yeah, manage
surgery.
it
Yeah.
through the year. You want to do some picks? I do
Let's do
have
some
one thing I've
picks.
played. I have one play so far.
All right. Well, it is the, I guess, best bet portion of the show. We've been rolling for a while now. I probably should pull up our records, but I don't have that handy with me right now. So, we didn't really rehearse this before. So what were you going to talk about, Andrew Schnicker?
Wait, what are we talking about? You just want
Well,
me to make a pick?
no, you said you had a play you made. Do you
Oh,
want that
okay.
to be your best bet? I guess we're
Yeah,
doing
yeah,
it
yeah.
on the
Yeah,
fly.
let's just go. I'll just do with that. Because that's the thing that I have.
All right, so we're 11-5 our last 16. So that's a nice 69%, baby. There we go. Uh family show, but 69% on our last 16 picks. We were absolutely rolling. I think we were 10-2 at one point, then had a little bit of stumble. But your boy has been picking up. I think you had won six straight. Unfortunately, that streak has ended. But it's time to get back on a new one for the last matchup of the year. And then we figure out what we're doing in the off season because we got to get everyone ready and got to find our Super Bowl picks on February. Let's see, it's going to be the 11th when this game is played. So let's figure on February 12th, we got to pick our Super Bowl winners for next season, or we take some time off and go to Barbados or something like that. So, what did you want to say? Do you want to give a pick? You can do whatever you'd like.
Hey, better yet, we'll go to Detroit for the NFL draft. Are you
We're
doing that?
doing that.
Yeah.
We're going.
Yeah, we're doing
We'll
that.
be at the draft. If you want to say hi to the Need for, well, no, that's college basketball. If you want to say hi to Betting Pitch NFL Edition, we will be at the NFL draft for a bachelor party. I'm sure I will be sober as a nun, but see me there. See Andrew Schnicker. You can thank us for our great winning streak toward the end of the season. You can question us on why we didn't record a few podcasts during the season. And then Schnicker can blame me for being in Italy and not wanting to stay up until 4 a.m, which is, fair, but also I think it's
both ways.
All right. So before I keep rambling, if you're
My
not,
best bet.
I'll cue you in. Give me 1 second. I'll key you in. If you're not a member of my Patreon, check it out. Patreon.com/real_Warner. Best spot to get all my plays. We're over 60% right now in college basketball. So you probably want to get involved in that. Soccer stuff has been actually really hot lately. Every game I watch, I'm just waiting for the penalties to be called. But it was a quiet weekend last weekend, so thank you. Even won a game with two penalties in under 2.25. So that was amazing. But that's been a good run. As we mentioned already, we were quoting lines courtesy of Bet Online in this podcast. And we have podcast links in the description. So if you want to go get a 50% bonus at Bet Online, go follow the links in the description on YouTube, Apple, or Spotify. And there's also a link on there for SportsBetting.ag. You get a full match up to $500. So throw 500 in, they give you 500 to play with from the casino. I highly recommend taking advantage of either of those if you're not a member there yet. I know it works for first-time depositors. Not sure for pre or ones after that. And we've already mentioned that we'll do a props episode if we get five-star reviews on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or 5 subscribers on YouTube, or 5 new patrons on my Patreon account. Just trying to get as much of you to show us that you want a last props episode, so we make sure that we can tell you what Gatorade color is coming on to Andy Reid or Kyle Shanahan. And that will be the end of my rant. So give us your best bet for this play, Andrew Schnicker.
Okay. The one thing that I took a little stab at in terms of team result based spread total, I actually went team total, and we're gonna go with the Chiefs under 23.5. We might want to wait. We'll probably wait on this to see where we want to go, but I have 23.5, and I'm good with grading it at that. Under 23.5.
So you just heard it, Andrew Schnicker. He gave you the Chiefs under 23.5 team total for the Super Bowl 58 in Allegiant Stadium, Las Vegas, Nevada. This is Betting the Pitch, the NFL edition. We've been rolling 11-5, 69%. Nice on our best bets for the last, 8 episodes. I've been winning a bunch of mine. I actually don't have my record in front of me at the moment, but I've been rolling, taking up after Schnicker was really embarrassing me when he won 6 straight on 6 straight podcasts. But for my best bet on this Super Bowl edition of our podcast, and by the way, we will do a props episode if we get 5 new subscribers on YouTube, or 5-star reviews on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, or 5 new, some sort of combination of Patreon subscribers, patreon.com/real_Warner. I'm going to give you the Chiefs +2, as I think that they are an underdog with better quarterback, better situation, and just a team that I trust more. So take the Chiefs under 23.5 and take the Chiefs +2. It's going to be a low scoring game and a victory in the Super Bowl. What do you think? Can we get a +2 with an under 23.5?
I think it's possible.
I mean, 23-0 sounds really great.
That's fine.
21 to
23, 21.
That's true.
Hey, it could be 23, 24, and you still win.
It could be 23 and me, but they actually aren't sponsoring this podcast, so I should stop saying random brand names that aren't giving me any money.
Yeah.
So I guess before we sign off, since we already give best bets, got an idea? We don't need to score a prediction necessarily, but what do you think the game's going to happen? Do you like my side, or are you more interested? Because you've been backing the Niners for a while.
Yeah, I feel like I can't back the Niners again. My God.
I
Even
mean,
though that was so annoying. If at least if he would have freaking kicked the field goal and given himself a chance rather than going and wasting all that time. Anyways.
yes, we're talking about the gambler. Oh boy,
God, dude.
that's the wrong button.
Crazy.
Oh no. Oh no, I'm way short now.
What?
I was adjusting my armrest on this chair, and I actually hit the chair lowering button. So I went way down. And all of a sudden,
I see this game as low scoring.
yeah, I feel like that is the professional gambler side. The sharp value people are going to say 47.5 feels really gigantic for a game that's going to really decide people's legacies. And so if you had to pick a side, which one are you going?
I'd take the Chiefs. I
Okay,
think.
we're both going Chiefs and we're both going under 47.5. And that'll do
But
it for this episode, a Super Bowl edition of Betting the Pitch NFL edition. So stay with us. Like I said, 5-star reviews, 5 subscribers on YouTube, 5 new patron subscribers or new patrons on Patreon, and we will do a props episode. So stay tuned, and we'll let you know if we're making one. And then other than that, we'll see everyone next season, and hopefully maybe we'll do a futures episode in the off season, maybe live from the draft. We'll see if Roger Goodell will support that idea. Maybe he'll be a
I don't want to
guest or
hear about
something like
Russian
that.
draft.
And in as you're giving the 5-star reviews, if you want to also just at NFL Commish about letting us do a podcast with him on stage as he's hugging people, that'd be huge
You know
too.
what? You know what I want to know, and we're going to find out in Detroit. I think the people that have the VIP spots at the draft, those are all paid actors. There's no way those humans are actual real people and care that much. There's no way. I think the NFL has so many planted actors at games, at events, because there's no way you care that much about a team that
Well,
doesn't care about you.
the sad part is I was going to get a draft 24 jersey from random team, potentially the Dallas Cowboys. That's where I live. Um,
I think
and
we're going to have matching outfits for the bachelor trip.
I didn't hear that. And I feel like of all people to coordinate those things, the one who's coordinating this bachelor party is not the person to do that.
I'm joking. I'm joking.
I mean, we might as
You
well make a
should though.
suggestion. We should make a request. Crosby, if you're listening, you need to really do it. I mean, no best man would have people just show up wearing whatever they want to the NFL draft. We have to have numbers 1 through 69 or however many people are going to this thing with nice on the back, and all custom jerseys, everything like that. And we're running out of time. So I'm going to sign off here. Get better, Andrew Snicker. You can follow him on Twitter, _SCHNITKER. I'm the real _G Warner. And this has been the Super Bowl edition of the Betting the Pitch NFL edition podcast.